If I sing well, will you give me a meal? I remember my own voice when I said that. 9 years old, barefoot, dirty, hugging a broken guitar I'd pulled from a trash pile 3 weeks earlier, like it was the last good thing in my life. The man in front of me, expensive suit, perfect hair, just laughed. Not a kind laugh. The kind that echoes down a hallway and tells you exactly where he thinks you belong. Girl, do you really think you're here to win anything? You're here to make the audience laugh. His name was Richard Brennan, executive producer, king of a show that sold dreams to some people and humiliation to others. I tightened my grip on that cracked neck of wood and swallowed. I understand perfectly, sir. I said it calm. Too calm for a child, and he didn't like that. But he had no idea that in that moment, something small but dangerous stood up inside me. The part of me that whispered, "This is the last time you let someone treat you like trash." 2 hours earlier, I'd been sleeping under an awning, rain dripping, belly empty, voice hoarse from singing on sidewalks for coins. A group of production assistants saw me and lit up. Not because I was talented, because I was useful. "Perfect," one of them whispered. "She'll be great as a special case at the end." You know, contrast, comic relief. They didn't even bother to pretend I was there to compete. "We'll put you last," Richard said, flipping through his clipboard. "After all the talented kids perform, you come to balance the show." I knew exactly what that meant. I'd grown up with people looking down at me, on buses and stores and shelters. I'd learned to read the tiny muscles in their faces, the tone in their voices. At 9, I already knew when someone had decided what I was worth. They thought I was here by accident. They had no idea. Because what they didn't know was that before the streets, there was my grandmother, Dorothy. The first time I saw her, I thought my heart had stopped. I was standing off to the side of the main stage, headset on, watching rehearsals, pretending to be just another executive checking lighting and timing. Gray hair, gold-rimmed glasses, title, executive director of the network. Power, money, status. But in that moment, all of that fell away. Because across the stage, there she was, a tiny girl sitting on the floor, broken guitar in her lap, eyes too old for her face. And when she told the assistant her full name, my world tilted. Kesha Dorothy Williams. Dorothy. That name lived in my bones. Dorothy Williams was the woman who'd saved my life long before I was a somebody. The first black woman I ever saw conduct a choir with the authority of a queen, my mentor, my second mother. And now her granddaughter was sitting on backstage concrete, being shoved away from the snack table like she was an inconvenience. "These snacks are only for official participants," the assistant told her. "You must be here to watch someone." "I'm performing," the girl said softly. I watched the assistant check her clipboard. "Oh, right, you're the special girl." I knew exactly what that meant. I'd sat in enough closed meetings to hear that word. Special didn't mean protected. It meant expendable. I walked closer, ignoring the clusters of kids in designer outfits with parents flashing their VIP passes like badges. "Excuse me," I said, almost afraid of the answer. "What's your full name again?" She looked up at me, calm, steady. "Kesha Dorothy Williams." There it was, the middle name like a lightning strike. "Dorothy Williams was my grandma," she answered. "She taught me how to sing." My vision blurred for a second. Dorothy had been gone 3 years. I'd known she was sick, but I hadn't known she had a grandchild. I hadn't known that child ended up on the streets. I'd failed her without even realizing it. "Where have you been living, Kesha?" I asked, my voice tighter than I wanted. She shrugged. "On the streets, since she died." That sentence should never belong to a 9-year-old. "Do you sing like her?" I asked. "She taught me everything I know," she said. "No arrogance, just fact." "Did you come here to win? To get discovered?" She looked past me toward the stage where Richard was laughing with other producers, planning whatever joke they had in mind. "I came here to show what I'm capable of." Dorothy's voice echoed in my head. "The best revenge against prejudice is excellence they can't deny." I felt it. The exact same stubborn fire in this child's eyes. "Can I do you a favor, Hushtrumund?" I asked. She surprised me. "Actually, I want to ask you a favor." "Anything," I said, and I meant it. "Name it. Don't interfere." That I did not expect. Her gaze was sharp, calculated, not cruel, just strategic. "Let them do exactly what they planned," she said. "Every joke, every trick, every look." "Kesha, they're going to try to humiliate you," I said quietly. "On live TV?" "I know," she answered. "When they do, I want you to record everything. Every word, every reaction. Then she smiled. And it was the exact same smile Dorothy used to give right before she turned a whole room inside out with a single hymn. I didn't come here for pity. I came with a plan. In my backpack, under a ripped shirt and 2 pens, there was an envelope. Yellowed, soft at the edges. My grandmother's handwriting on the front. Only open when you're ready to use everything I taught you, my granddaughter. I'd opened it 2 nights before, under a broken streetlight. Inside, she told me things I never knew. That she hadn't just been a church singer. She'd been one of the first black women to graduate in composition from Juilliard in the 60s. She'd written songs for choirs all over the country. She'd mentored a young man named James Mitchellpour, scared, black, and trying to survive in an industry that didn't want him. James is like a son to me, she wrote. If you ever need help, go to him. But don't ask for charity. Show him who you are first. So that's what I did. I asked him not to save me. I asked him to watch me, to make sure when I stepped into the fire that the world saw exactly who lit the match. Richard didn't even notice me when he stormed up to Kesha again. Hey girl, it's your time to shine, he said, smirking. We hope you entertain us out there. He thought he was a puppeteer. He had no idea the strings were already cut. As Kesha walked toward the stage, she glanced back at me. My grandma always said God gives us talents not just to lift ourselves, but to lift others who come after us, she whispered. Today isn't just about me. It felt like Dorothy had reached through time and grabbed me by the collar. I turned to my team. Keep the cameras rolling, I said. All of them. Backstage too. I don't care what the rundown says. Don't stop recording. The stage lights came up. The crowd murmured, curious, judgmental, amused. A barefoot black girl with a broken guitar had just walked into America's living room. The lights were so bright I could barely see faces, but I could feel them. The skepticism, the boredom, this should be funny energy. I stepped up to the microphone anyway. Hello, I said. My name is Kesha Dorothy Williams. I'm 9 years old. I want to dedicate this song to my grandmother, who taught me that music has no color and no social class. For a second, I saw confusion flicker in Richard's eyes at the name Dorothy. Then he shrugged it off and gave his planned hand signal. I strummed the first chord. The guitar might have been broken, but my hands knew exactly where each note lived. Dorothy had trained me to read music at 5, to sing scales until my throat burned, to repeat a single phrase until it sounded like truth. The sound came out surprisingly clear. A violent hiss ripped through the speakers. Static, screeching. That awful high-pitched howl that makes your teeth hurt. People in the audience winced. A few laughed. On the side of the stage, Richard shouted theatrically, "Technical problems. What a shame. We'll have to cut." No.
Not this time.
I stepped away from the dead microphone. I walked to the edge of the stage. No amplification, no backing track, no auto-tune. And I started to sing. I didn't choose some pop song they expected me to butcher. I chose Amazing Grace. The hymn Dorothy used to sing when the lights went out in the church because someone forgot to pay the bill. The song we sang over her bed when the doctors quietly told us there was nothing more they could do. No mic, no sound system. Just breath, memory, and everything I'd ever survived. My voice cut straight through the static. Years on subway platforms had trained my lungs to be louder than trains. Years in tunnels had taught me how to write echo and turn it into reverb. One row, then another, then another. The laughter stopped. The whispering stopped. Silence, except for my voice. Every note landed exactly where I wanted it. Every word carried all the nights I'd spent hungry, all the mornings I'd woken up on concrete, all the times people walked past my open guitar case like I was invisible. By the time I hit the last, I once was lost, the audience wasn't laughing. They were crying. I've heard thousands of singers. Auditions, concerts, competitions, festivals. Nothing prepared me for that. The sound guy frantically tried to cut the broadcast. Richard screamed, "Turn everything off! Kill the feed!" But my crew had their orders. They kept filming, kept broadcasting, every pixel, every tear. Kesha finished on a soft note that somehow filled the entire room. For 3 full seconds, no one moved. Then the entire audience stood up at once. The applause sounded like thunder. People were shouting, clapping, sobbing. Even some of the parents who treated her like garbage were on their feet. Backstage, the kids who mocked her stared like they'd just seen a ghost. That was my cue. Keep rolling, I told the control room, and I walked onto the stage. I was still catching my breath when I saw him join me. Same gray hair, same glasses, same eyes full of something heavy. He took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, my name is James Mitchell. I'm the executive director of this network, and I need to tell you who this extraordinary girl really is. Richard went white. He hadn't known James was here. Kesha Dorothy Williams, James continued, is the granddaughter of Dorothy Williams, one of the greatest gospel composers this country has ever had. A woman who graduated from Juilliard in the 1960s, when that was almost impossible for a black woman. A woman who was my mentor, my family. The room gasped. I stood there, heart racing, holding that broken guitar, watching the truth finally stretch its legs and fill the space. Dorothy died 3 years ago, James said, voice shaking, and I had no idea her granddaughter ended up living on the streets. No idea she had to sing on sidewalks to survive. Meanwhile, my own show, he swallowed hard, my own team, brought this child here not to honor her talent, but to humiliate her for ratings. Cameras swung backstage. They caught everything. The assistant pushing me from the snack table. The kids whispering that I was there so they could shine brighter. Richard joking about sabotaging my performance. James didn't protect him. Richard Brennan, he said, pointing straight at him, you are fired, not just from this show, but from this network. And I doubt any serious broadcaster will want to hire a man who thinks humiliating a child is entertainment. The audience booed so loud Richard's mouth moved, but no sound reached anyone. James turned to the kids. And to those of you who laughed at her, who judged her by her clothes and her skin and her guitar, I hope today teaches you that talent does not come dressed in your expectations. Ashley, the blonde girl who told me her teacher cost more than I'd ever see, stared at the floor, tears sliding down her cheeks. Then he turned to me and knelt, right there in front of everyone. Kesha, he said, on behalf of this entire company, I am sorry. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. Not just for your voice, but for the dignity with which you faced all of this. I held on to my guitar a little tighter. She always told me, I said, that music is our secret weapon, and that the best cure for prejudice is excellence that can't be denied. The words left my mouth and went straight into millions of living rooms. The days after that night were chaos. The clip of Kesha singing through the Sabotage hit 50 million views in less than a day. People were outraged, not just at what they'd almost seen, but at what they did see. We released the full behind-the-scenes footage. Every comment, every plan to make the audience laugh, every sneer. This network failed an exceptional child, I said at the press conference, and we will not let that happen again. Richard's career disintegrated overnight. No one wanted to hire the man whose name now meant the producer who humiliated a homeless child. Ashley's parents pulled her from her fancy conservatory and put her in a regular public school. We want our daughter to understand humility, her father said publicly. I hoped he meant it, but the most important part wasn't their fall. It was Kesha's rise. We created the Dorothy Williams program, full music scholarships for talented kids from poor communities. Kesha was the first recipient. Not charity. Correction. She got a home, a real bed. A school that challenged her mind, not her dignity. My wife and I, we asked if we could adopt her. We'd never been able to have children. Dorothy had always joked that we would borrow one through music someday. The judge approved it. Suddenly, the girl who'd asked for a meal in exchange for a song had a family again. 6 months later, I walked onto another stage. No broken guitar this time. No static. No one laughing. Carnegie Hall, New York. I was 11. Wearing a simple dark dress. Same hands, same voice, same heart. The New York Philharmonic behind me. The Dorothy Williams program logo on the screen. Millions of people watching again. I want to dedicate this piece, I said into the mic, to all the kids who get judged by the color of their skin, their clothes, or where they sleep at night. Before anyone hears what they carry inside, I sang.
Not from fear.
Not from hunger, from gratitude, from power, from knowing that this time we'd come through the front door. That night we raised $5 million for scholarships. Kids from shelters, trailer parks, reservations. Barrio's children with voices like mine, like Dorothy's, got a chance to be seen. And I realized something. I wasn't just singing for myself anymore. 2 years later, I walked another stage, the Grammys. I was 13. In my hands, the same guitar, repaired, polished, but still scarred, still mine. This guitar, I said into the microphone after they called my name, taught me something. Strength doesn't come from what you have. It comes from what you do with what you have. I slept on sidewalks clutching this thing, and now I'm standing here. Sometimes you really do have to hit the lowest point to see how high you can climb. Ashley wrote me a letter after watching the show. A real letter, pen, paper, tear stains. You taught me that talent has nothing to do with the opportunities we're born into, she wrote, but with the courage to keep singing even when people try to silence us. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I wrote back. We became friends because my grandmother didn't just teach me how to fight. She taught me how to forgive. Today, when I walk through our studio, I see her face everywhere. Not on posters, in kids. Brown, black, white, Asian, native. Kids with cheap shoes and big eyes and voices that make you forget what you were doing. The Dorothy Williams program has passed 1,000 students. Our show changed. No more special cases for laughs. Child psychologists on set, social workers. A zero-tolerance policy for humiliation disguised as content. On the stage where we almost broke a child, we carved new words in gold. Talent does not choose birthplace, color, or social class. We live by it now. And every time I see Kesha walk into the building, not as a prop, not as a victim, but as the artistic director of the program that bears her grandmother's name, I know something for sure. We didn't save her. She saved us. Show Kesha voiceover. I still visit the shelters. I still sing on street corners sometimes, just to remember the acoustics of concrete and cold. Kids look at me with wide eyes when I tell them where I used to sleep. Our gifts aren't just to lift ourselves, I tell them. They're to build bridges so others can cross after us. That's what Grandma Dorothy did for James. What James did for me. What I'm trying to do for them. People still underestimate kids like me. They see skin, clothes, accents, addresses. They don't see hours of practice in bus stations. Harmony learned by listening through cracked church doors. Rhythm tapped on school desks in overcrowded classrooms. But I've learned something the hard way. Underestimating someone because of how they look, where they're from, or how low they've fallen is always expensive.
Not for them, for you.
Because real talent doesn't ask permission.
It waits. It watches.
And when the lights finally hit, it rewrites every rule that was supposed to keep it quiet. As for Richard Brennan, last I heard he was selling used cars in a small town. Still talking. But no one's pointing cameras at him anymore. He tried to make himself bigger by shrinking a child. In the end, he only shrank himself.
Me?
I'm still that little girl with the broken guitar. I'm just holding the mic now. And I'm making sure that every time a kid steps onto a stage where people expect them to fail, the world hears exactly how wrong those people were.